a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. I'm so glad you're with me on the program today. We're going to be spending some time talking with Michael Cargill from Central Texas Gun Works. I ran across this story from Fox 7 in Austin, and I ran across this yesterday. I thought, I want to write about this, but I want to hold off because I actually want to talk with Michael about this. Here's the headline: Austin man earns gun license despite having no arms. And yeah, Michael Cargill was the firearms instructor who helped this young man go through a concealed carry course using his feet. That's right. You don't actually have to have arms to bear arms. And we're going to talk with Michael about this incredible story, as well as the Supreme Court accepting Garland versus Cargill, the challenge to the ATF's administratively imposed ban on bump stocks that the court has agreed to hear. This is the first time that the court, and hopefully not the last, that the court is going to be reviewing one of these ATF rules that some appellate courts say actually is new legislation crafted by the ATF, not an existing regulation, but far beyond the agency's authority. Anyway, we'll get to this conversation here in just 1 second. Before we do, though, we do need to talk about something else for just a moment. Biden's America. It is crushing us. You've got companies laying off tens of thousands of workers, one after the other. Americans working 2 jobs just to get by. Inflation pushing hardworking families to the brink. Just look at the price of lunch meat next time you go to the grocery store. And a digital dollar could be coming down the pipeline to completely destroy our way of life. The truth is, you need a plan. You know it, and I know it. And that's why you should call Goldco, so you can diversify your savings and investments with gold and silver before things get worse. They're a 6-time Inc. 5000 winner, 2022 Company of the Year, thousands of 5-star reviews, and they've helped people like you and me place over $1 billion in gold and silver. Right now, they're offering up to $10,000 in free silver while supplies last. And if you call them today, qualified callers will get a free Ronald Reagan half-ounce silver coin. So don't wait. Call Goldco at 855-412-3806 today. That's 855-412-3806. And now let's get to our conversation with Michael Cargill from Central Texas Gun Works. An amazing story, overcoming adversity and exercising your Second Amendment rights, as well as, again, Michael's thoughts on the Supreme Court hearing his challenge to the ATF's bump stock ban. Take a look and a listen. Michael, thanks so much for coming on the program. It's great seeing you again, sir.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about, but I want to start with this story. This is really incredible. And I was so pleased to see the positive coverage by Fox 7 in Austin. What can you tell me about this gentleman who came into the store, wanted some concealed carry training, but, had this, I apologize if this is not the right word to use, but has this, major disability. It does not have arms. What was your first reaction?
Yeah, it was a fluke thing. When he walked into the gun store, we do fingerprinting for the state of Texas for different jobs and things of that nature. So he walked in to get fingerprints for that because someone sent him to me because they didn't know how to do his fingerprint. So, because he doesn't have any fingers. So we, figured out what we need to do, which is just annotate it, get it done, and get all that stuff submitted. And then, he said, also I've been, wanting to shoot. I want to get my, my concealed handgun license or my Texas license to carry a handgun. So I said, well, we do that here as well. And so he said, well, can you help me? I said, yes, absolutely.
No hesitation on your part.
No hesitation whatsoever. My job is, if someone asks me, they walk into the door, my job is to help them and assist them with that and, the best of my ability.
So did he have any experience shooting beforehand?
No, not at all. So we first had to figure out what handgun that actually would work for him since he was going to be using his feet and his toes. So we had to make sure we got something small enough that he can actually hold. It wasn't too heavy. We had to check the slide, make sure he was able to pull the slide back, kind of work with him like that. And then also making sure he pulled the trigger. And then the most important thing, load the rounds in the magazine. Because when it comes to you defending yourself, you're going to have to do everything. No one's going to be there to help you. No one's going to assist you. You have to do everything from start to finish. And and I want to make sure that I didn't cheat him, by helping him at all. I wanted him to do everything from start to finish.
That is just amazing. And so, you say you passed the concealed carry course with flying colors, but how much of a learning curve was there to go from not having really an experience shooting to, again, heading to the range, being able to, as you say, just everything from loading that firearm, drawing it from a holster, and again, sending those rounds down range? It seems to me like there must have been a pretty steep learning curve.
Yeah, so what we did was first in the classroom, I worked with him on how he was going to sit, do it, what he was going to do. The hardest thing for him, believe it or not, was his abs, his abdominal area. And that was something that he didn't, that muscle hasn't really been worked. So he's already used to using his feet, to do everything else. So he's kind of used to doing that because, me, I can't do that. You may not be able to do that, but someone they don't have a choice, your body adapts to, to doing things that way. So I got with him, inside the classroom and worked with him on a particular firearm. We worked on loading the rounds in the ammunition, loading the rounds in the magazine. We then worked on, pulling the slide back, loading it. And then we worked on, the trigger. And so, man, he impressed me. And like I said, it really brought me to tears to watch this young man who wanted to do this and no one knew how to really help him. And so I said, well, I've never actually worked with anyone with no limbs at all. But I've had someone who had a motorcycle accident that lost a right arm and the right leg that was right-handed. And I was able to do that. I thought that would have been harder, but this was, by far something totally different. And so we adapted. It made me adapt. I had to learn as well as an instructor, so it was a learning curve for me, learning curve for him. And we were able to get together and just with a lot of patience, on his part and my part. And he did an outstanding job. I was so impressed. It just, I was totally floored.
It really is incredible. And so have you followed up? Does he plan on getting his carry license?
Yeah, so we've actually turned in all the paperwork and everything, waiting for the license to come back in the mail. And then he actually wants to do other guns as well. So, we're going to keep on going. As far as he wants to go, then that's where we'll go.
That is awesome. I do have one practical question though.
Sure.
How do you, I'm assuming he's wearing footwear, right, over the course of his daily routine as he's out and about. How does do you got to kick off your shoe? Do you got to take off your socks? I mean, how do you, if you're in an encounter with somebody and he goes sideways, he can go sideways very quickly. How does this individual actually draw their firearm in a timely manner?
Right. So he has a bag that he carries with him.
Okay.
He has slip-on shoes. And so, that's going to be one of the next steps that we also work on as well. Getting out of that concealed carry position, because part of the Texas licensed carry handgun is not really drawing from the holster. So that's not part of the curriculum.
Right.
But we are going to work on that and get to that next step as well. But this young man, I have no worries at all. I know he will be able to defend himself.
And it's so great to see this because, again, we talk about the right of the people to keep and bear arms, right? And, the disabled shooting sports, I think, is really something that most Americans are unaware of. But, man, I mean, with some of the adaptive, equipment that is out there, and, again, instructors like yourself, it really seems like the only barrier for a lot of folks is going to be themselves, right? If there is a will, there is a way for folks to exercise their Second Amendment rights.
All right. Either the barrier is going to be the government in whatever rules and laws they put in place, or that person's, that individual themselves. Because as far as instructors, our job is to, you walk into the door. I always tell people I can lead you to water, but I cannot make you drink.
There you go. And I'm glad that you brought up the government regulations, because that provides a nice segue to something else I wanted to ask you about. You're going to the Supreme Court, Michael. How about that?
Yes, sir. We are so excited about this. The Garland versus Cargill is now headed toward the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has accepted cert. And so they're going to hear this case either late February or early March of 2024, or sometime in March of 2024. And so we'll see what the federal government has to say. And this is the bump stock lawsuit Garland versus Cargill, which in essence talks about the machine gun, what a definition of machine gun is, and also can the ATF, an agency within the federal government, can they create a right law? And so we'll see. And it's not just for the ATF. It's not just about guns. It's also about, other agencies. What about the FDA? Any other agency that's out there, can they just arbitrarily turn millions of Americans into felons overnight?
Yeah, and this is, an issue, the Administrative Procedures Act. The Supreme Court, this is not the only case actually dealing with the APA that the court has accepted in the coming months, right? So it does appear like the court is really interested in reining in some of the executive branch overreach that we're seeing here. And certainly when it comes to the ATF, not only do we have the bump stock ban, but we've got the rules against frames and receivers. We've got the stabilizing brace rule. And even now, they're promulgating a new rule about engaged in the business of selling a firearm, right? And there's a very broad definition about who is engaged in the business. So Garland versus Cargill is really it's hugely important, as you say, not just for, other agencies, but specifically when it comes to reining in these ATF abuses. This really could be the foot in the door that allows for all of these other rules to be successfully challenged going forward.
Correct. This case, the Garland v. Cargill case, is setting the stage to stop the ATF from going after triggers, whether it's a brace, whatever parts and pieces they're trying to go after, and all agencies like that, because we're talking about something that is in common use by our citizens, and all of a sudden, an agency has decided, they're just going to ban this particular product and turn, over 1 million people into felons, and that's just not how our Constitution was written. And I always tell people, it's just like the Schoolhouse Rock song. Someone in Congress has to create a bill. It goes through both houses. The president signs it. There's a process. We have a Constitution, and the media always talks about the First Amendment. I don't. When we get into other things, do you always lose your First Amendment forever? So we have to talk about those things.
Absolutely. Now, what is the status in the Fifth Circuit for the sale of bump stocks? Because I got to tell you, it is so hard to keep track of all the injunctions and the injunctions that get stayed and the injunctions that, get put in place afterwards. So are bump stocks available for sale within the Fifth Circuit at the moment?
Okay. So no. So currently right now, there are two cases. We had to decide whether to fight the being able to own and sell bump stocks in the Fifth Circuit, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, or just focus on the Supreme Court. Financially, we had to make that decision, and we just decided to fight in just one court, which is in the Supreme Court. And so the lower court in the Fifth Circuit granted the government's petition to do to keep the ban in place. So the bump stock ban is still in place. We didn't fight that. We decided just to wait until we make it to the Supreme Court, because in the Fifth Circuit, they said, hey, bump stocks are not machine guns. And they sent that case back down to the lower court to decide, either to grant it, Michael Cargill to be able to get his bump stocks back, or just Texas, or all citizens, or, just Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, or all states. So they said, okay, what we'll do is we'll just wait until the Supreme Court rules on this, and we'll just keep the ban in place. And once the Supreme Court rules, then we'll go back and revisit it. So we didn't fight that. We just said, okay, we're not going to fight this in both courts. We'll just let the Supreme Court decide, and then we'll deal with it then.
Yeah. Well, I think that was the right choice to make with the Supreme Court granting cert. Did you have any concerns that you would appeal to the Supreme Court and they would just say, nah, we know that there's this split in the appellate courts, but now we're not going to accept this case? Or did you feel pretty confident that because you've had some courts say, oh, what the ATF's doing is fine, and other circuit courts have said, no, it's completely an abuse of authority, did that lead you to believe that the Supreme Court was going to be interested in taking this case?
Well, I never, want to anticipate what a court is going to do or what a jury is going to do. So we just hope that, my attorneys did the best they possibly could do for myself, as their client, and also for the American people to fight for this case and fight we thought what was right. And so I'm happy that the Supreme Court, granted cert, and I'm happy that this is going forward, and so we'll see what happens. And I'm hopeful that the Supreme Court will do what we hope them to do, which is, saying, hey, bump stocks is not a machine gun, and the ATF cannot create a right law. and this will help us with all the different other parts and pieces that the ATF is banning.
Absolutely. It is a critically important case. And Michael, I'm glad that you're a part of it. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Thank you for everything that you do. I hope that things are going well for you. Are things busy at the store these days?
Things are picking up. We're getting to the holiday season, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever people are celebrating. We're getting to that season right now, and things are moving right along. And so we're standing here with our fingers crossed, and our toes crossed, waiting for February or March to make it to Washington, D.C.
Absolutely. Well, listen, man, thank you again for your time today. I know we'll be talking before oral arguments at the Supreme Court, but hopefully we get a chance. You know what? I would make the 3-hour drive from Central Virginia up to D.C. to hang out in person if you're going to be there for the oral arguments. So we will definitely be connecting again very soon. And of course, if folks are in the Austin area, Central Texas Gun Works, you guys are open. What are your hours in case I want to pay you a visit and see you in person, shake your hand?
Absolutely. We're open Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6, on Sunday 10 to 1, and I'm always here.
Awesome. Michael, thank you again for everything you do. It was great spending some time with you today, and look forward to continuing the conversation in the near future.
Yes, sir. As always, more guns equals less crime. You go out there and you buy yourself a gun.
There you go. Michael Cargill with us here on Bearing Arms Cam & Company. My thanks to Michael for joining us here on the program. Looking forward to having him back again in the near future. Now let's turn our attention to today's armed citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. We'll start there with a case out of California. Fremont murder suspect had just been put on probation. This according to the Berkeley Banner newspaper. 34-year-old Lorenzo Alante Haley had been placed on probation just several weeks ago for a violent attack on a stranger back in January. He was also ordered to participate in mental health treatment as part of his probation plan, according to court records. Now he is facing murder and attempted murder charges for a double shooting in Fremont on November the 12th. Authorities say one of the rounds that was fired that day entered a nearby motel room, nearly struck somebody inside. Police have offered no motive for the murder case, but the Berkeley Banner reports that court records the Berkeley Scanner reviewed on Monday indicate that Haley had a history of violent, sometimes erratic behavior. In January of this year, according to his court file, Haley attacked a man who was working in an auto parts store. The injuries were so severe that the man was left intubated and unconscious at Highland Hospital with a traumatic brain injury. After he attacked the auto parts worker, he then went into a pizza shop next door, challenged customers to a fight. Nobody took him up on it. He then punched the restaurant door, fracturing the glass before he left. In that case, Haley was sentenced to felony probation on October 24th. He spent about 5 months in jail, but that's the only time behind bars that he spent in this attack that, again, left somebody unconscious and intubated in a hospital. As part of his probation, he was ordered to meet regularly with a social worker and to, quote, participate actively in mental health treatment with Bay Area Community Services to, quote, make sure he's getting the services he needs. That, according to the judge. It's unclear at this point whether or not he actually did any of that in the 19 days between the time that he was sentenced to probation and the time that police say he, again, killed a man and injured another in Fremont, California. On November 2nd, though, according to court documents, he failed to appear in a pending misdemeanor prowling case that had been charged with a month earlier. Authorities then issued a bench warrant for his arrest. They didn't find him until November the 12th, when Fremont police were dispatched to a Motel 6 where they found 2 men on the ground who had been shot, both men taken to the hospital. One man ultimately died. One witness said the shooter fired twice at one of the victims when he was already on the ground. The wife of the man who died told police that she saw the suspect flee the scene. She later identified Haley as that individual. Fremont officers, quote, flooded the area and arrested Haley a short distance away in the flight path that he took running from the scene of the crime. He allegedly tossed a face mask, his jacket, and an empty magazine from a firearm. No gun has been recovered, but the Berkeley Scanner reports that community surveillance cameras spotted Haley running from the scene, holding a gun, and then jumping over a fence to evade capture. So again, here we have somebody in California. By the way, a long list of felony convictions, according to Fremont police. Carjacking case in 2009. Pled down to felony vehicle theft. One of his earliest felony convictions, August of 2012, was for possession of a firearm by a felon. That was followed up with another gun possession case in 2012. One was reduced to possession of ammunition. Second case resulted in a short stint in county jail and 5 years of probation. 4 years ago, Haley had 5 felony convictions: evasion, vehicle theft, grand theft, as well as 2 counts of commercial burglary. One of the burglary counts resulted in a short prison stay. The other convictions resulted in probation. He also has a felony burglary case from 2021 that resulted in probation. So again, all kinds of opportunities for the state of California to keep Mr. Haley behind bars, but time and time again, he was sentenced to probation for his crimes, even for violent offenses. Yeah, California's soft on crime policies strike yet again. Now, today's armed citizen story, Colorado Springs, Colorado, where a reported home invasion resulted in no injuries, either to the homeowner or the suspect, although it did result in a shot fired. Police were called to the residence at Austin Bluffs just after 3 a.m. Monday morning on a report of shots fired. When they arrived, they spoke with the homeowner. Police wrote in their online blotter, information was obtained that a home invasion had occurred within an occupied apartment at this location. The resident fired a shot at the lone intruder who forced entry into the apartment. The suspect was located by officers in the nearby area and was taken into custody for burglary-related charges. No injuries reported. Suspect identified as a man named Skylar Cisneros. As of Monday morning, he was in the El Paso County Jail. However, who knows how long that will be the case there in Colorado. And finally today, our good deed of the day, in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. A priest in Washington State who helped deliver twin babies outside of a cathedral. Yeah, this is not what the priest in question was expecting to do. He was actually on his way to get donuts for an engaged couple ahead of a marriage preparation meeting. But as Fox News' Emma Colton reports, the Reverend Jesus Mariscal walked outside the cathedral, St. Paul Cathedral in Yakima. This is back in September. And he heard a woman crying out for help, screaming, "I'm having it now, I'm having it now." He walked over to her. The woman, who's identified only as a homeless individual, told the priest that she was about to deliver her child. Mariscal noted blood at the woman's feet. He called 911, put the call on speaker, and then followed the dispatcher's instructions on how to help the woman in her delivery. A baby boy was born just a few seconds later, but soon after the priest handed the child to his mom, she screamed that another baby was on the way. And then she gave birth to a second son. That baby, however, still in the amniotic sac, according to a police report. So the priest saw the baby moving around the sac, was instructed by the 911 operator to pierce the sac, remove the child. He actually had to tear the sac open with his hands. The child was not responsive. The umbilical cord was wrapped around its neck, and he wasn't breathing. So the priest turned the child on his side, tapped the back until the child actually took that deep breath and cried out. What an amazing sound. Yakima Bishop Joseph Tyson said, "I'm grateful for Father Jesus being there to help the mother and her children. We need to serve everyone." The priest placed the second child in the mother's arms, ran to get towels from the rectory, all before paramedics arrived on scene. He said it was a surreal experience. It was like something from a movie. I'm there holding a baby with my bloody hands, and the baby was all bloody as well, and I'm dressed in clerics and a priest in front of the shrine of Our Lady. And I'm thinking, what is God trying to tell me? What are you trying to tell me, God? What is this about? Well, the babies were born premature, family taken to a local hospital, but according to Fox, they are now doing well. And Father Mariscal visited the newborns and the mom while they were in the hospital, telling the Catholic Extension that he texted the engaged couple who was supposed to be meeting and apologized for being late. He said the couple thought it was a joke. He said, "I'm sorry I'm late for our appointment. I was just helping a lady deliver twins." The couple responded, "LOL, Father, you don't have to lie." Well, not going to do a thing like that, but again, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Father Jesus Mariscal in Yakima, Washington, we thank you for your very, very good deed. Now, that is all the time we've got for you in this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company, but we will be back tomorrow. We are going to take Thanksgiving off, but we will have a show for you on Wednesday. Looking forward to being with you once again. And don't forget to check out BearingArms.com throughout the day. We're keeping you up to date on all of the latest Second Amendment news and information from all across the nation. Sometimes even international news about our ability to keep and bear arms. Not a right in a lot of other countries. Should be, but it's not. Thankfully, we live here, where the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, at least in theory. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, be well, be safe, and be free.